Alright, and we're back right where I left off from the last video. Right now I wanted to go in and show you how to set up a 3-point light rig, which basically consists of a key light, which is our main source of light, lighting the scene, a fill light, which is usually off to the other side of your subject, just sort of filling in the shadows a little bit so it's not quite so harsh. Then a rim light, also known as the hair light, that sort of lights the back edges a bit. So I'm going to knock this back to 100%. And in fact, I'm going to minimize this guy. And I'm going to go into camera properties. I'm going to close that out. So last, when I left this whole setup, I've got my little array of area lights. So let's dismantle that. This is that down here is where the picture went. So just if you're wondering what this is, that's the picture while it's minimized. So let me see here. I gotta go to lights, motion properties to bring that up, and I'm just gonna disconnect everything off from this lighting null. And this is probably the slow way of doing it, but it's the way I'm gonna do it. To none. Number 2 goes to none. And number 1 to none. And back to 4 just to make sure. And good. So since I'm only going to need 3 lights for this lighting rig, I'm going to make sure, well, it doesn't really matter, they're all clones, but I'll just pick the last one in the list anyway. And then go up under Items. Down here, under Delete, we have Clear Selected. So the light is selected, so when I hit Clear Selected, do I want to clear Test Light 4 from the scene? Yes. So I'm back down to 3 lights, and I'll be able to set those up. So I'm going to go Lights, Properties, and now I'm going to make sure all my lights are labeled. So my first light, I'm going to change its name to Key Light, and then you have to hit Enter for it to take. And then my next light down, this is going to be my Fill. And my rim, also known as the hair light. Because when you're shooting a person, this is really the light that just makes the hair stand out, gives that great edge. But ultimately, if you're not shooting a person or some object that has hair, then calling it a hair light doesn't make much sense. So it's also known as the rim light, because it's the outer rim. It highlights the outer rim. Alright, let me see here. I think that'll work for me. So I'm going to come over here. Now I want to leave these area. I'm going to grab my key light, so it's the one selected. Let me get a good vantage point here, because I'm going to want a top-down view. So I'll make this one, oh, I've already got a top-down view happening. So I'll leave that. So over here is my top view. So we'll zoom in here. So one downside about having the pen is when you're trying to do anything over on this side of the screen that needs you to go towards the right, you get very short strokes that you're able to make. Alright, and then the Alt key works the same way here in layout as well in the perspective view, so I can use that to sort of orbit my my viewport around. We'll keep my camera view, so just as a reminder, we've never changed the camera view once I set it back in the target tutorial. Alright, so now I just got a feel for where all my lights are. And I'm going to go ahead and target all the lights. I should have done this back then. So I will make sure I hit M to bring up my motion options, And I'm going to take each of my lights and I'm going to go ahead and target it. That would be the parent. This is the target. To the surface, to the mammoth. Alright, so that was my key light. Now my fill light, target, mammoth, whoop, and my rim light, target, mammoth. And then bring my properties back up. So now I can move the light around as I want, and it'll just sort of keep itself oriented, pointing where I want it to point. So here, this is going to be this. All right, we'll set our key light first, which is kind of what I thought I had. So I'm going to go back to my rim light and just move that out of the way, and then come back to my key light. So my key light is my main source of light. So I'm going to bring it down a little bit, maybe in a little closer here. So it will end up lighting, the main area here and cast the major shadow. In fact, let's build this up. So I'm actually going to come in, grab my fill light, and I'm going to ramp its intensity all the way down to 0, so it's not doing anything. I'm going to grab my rim light, and I'm going to ramp it all the way down to 0, so it's not doing anything. And then as we add them, we'll add them back in. So go back to my key light, and maybe down here a little bit. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. And just to save time during these initial renders, I'm going to bring my camera option back up, properties. I'm going to drop that back down to no anti-aliasing, or else this is just going to get really boring, me sitting here trying to figure out what to say during 2-minute renders during the video. So back to lights, key light. Let me see, our light intensity is about 45%. I'm going to bring my since it's my key light, I'm going to bring that back up to 100%. And then we'll come over render and render frame. So, this will take us a little while, but at least it's not going to be doing the multiple render anti-aliasing passes. So that's done. So it's 10.5 seconds. And so here's our pass for just the key light. We've kind of gone back to where we've got the little sort of craziness in the shadows a bit, but looks nice. But we're ultimately, there's a lot of detail back here. Oh boy, I should have picked a slightly better camera angle. When I first set this camera angle up, I wasn't thinking my 3-point light rig, because it doesn't really give a great opportunity to look at or see. Well, there's a little bit of shadow in here that's really, really dark. I don't think even my fill light is necessarily going to fill all these areas just because of the shape of the objects that I'm dealing with. But the fill area will certainly help. So get that back in. So there's our key light, our main light source, shining it. We'll minimize that back down. And now we will go with our fill light. So if my key light is here, shining this way, then I want my fill light over off to the other side. I might bring it down probably kind of the same height. And the light intensity for this, I was put the question out there, what Steve teaches in the lighting class, and he says a good basic rule, from what I understand, to go by is your fill light being about a quarter of the intensity of your key light. So my key light was up to 100%, so I'm just going to ramp up to 25%, give or take a little bit here. So there's my fill light. So let's do a quick render. And we'll see we should see a nice difference where we're still going to have shadow detail in here, but we're actually going to see detail rather than just a very strong shadow. And we're going to start to see multiple shadows come in because we're having diverging light sources. So that's always kind of neat. So abort, kick this back up to 200, and just shift over a little bit here. So we're getting a little bit, we're still not seeing a huge difference, unless that's just my key light, and then key light with a fill. See, fairly dark in here on these edges, dark back in here. Fill just starts to give us a little bit more that we can see. And we'll kick this back to 100 and minimize it back. Here's another neat little thing. Whoop, I must have clicked on something inadvertently. I can actually change over here to light view, and I'll actually see what that light is seeing. So as I adjust it, maybe pull it up a little bit, so I can get a better feel of just, what shadows, what am I looking at that's going to actually see the difference. So it's just a little minor tweak. So I'm not going to bother to do another render right now. We'll get our rim light set before we do that. So let's select our rim light, rim or hair light, and this guy needs to go behind. Now the hair light goes behind, and usually kind of high, because we really want, the light to hit all these upper edges. And this is another reason why putting a little bit of a bevel on an object that you're making gives just a great look, because it gives extra surfaces for light to catch off. And when you've got a nice little rig set up like this, um, it really catches these edges well. So light intensity for the rim light, that's something you get to kind of get a feel for. I'm going to try, boy, that's going to be a little bit harsh, I think. Go back to my camera view on this one. It's going to be pretty intense. So let's go down to, well, you know what? Let's do it intense. Let's live on the edge, baby. We'll kick this up. And it's probably going to end up, really overlighting the floor more than I want it to, but it'll also probably really highlight the idea of what's happening with the rim light, and then we can always dial it back afterwards. So we come back, hit abort. Now you see how we get these highlights on the edges that just were not there before. So if I come back, so actually let's even go back. So this is just the key light. And then key light and the fill light. And then this last one I did a minor adjustment to the fill light and then really kicked on the rim light. You can just see just how much better this all looks. Here and here, here. Now, let me show you a neat little trick when dealing with the key light. It looks a little unnatural, but you can make your judgment call when you're doing stuff for yourself or client at some point. But remember how over in the objects we can actually tell a light not to light certain objects? If we take our rim light and tell it not to light the floor, it's only going to light the elephant, the mammoth. So let's just do a quick render of it that way. So we're going to end up with, that nice highlight edges that the rim light is giving, but it's not going to give us the indication of where that light source is, even though, it should certainly be, a little bit behind and above it, but I'm not getting a shadow cast from it. But it's certainly a respectable look, I think. And just a before and after. So that's with it. Same light, all the same settings of the light. The only thing I did was I told it, don't cast light on the floor. So it's casting light on the mammoth, but not on the floor in the second shot. So just a neat shot, I think. Neat look. So that is the basic of setting up a three-point light rig for something. Now an extra little trick, let's throw in here. Where is it? I just want to make sure I've got this one specific button I want to make sure is pressed. Watch me not be able to find it. See, I wasn't going to do this, and then so I've decided, yeah, I'll throw it in. And of course now it's completely screwing me up. Rotate general tools. Alright, move path tool, add position, rotate. I am looking for parent in place. Oh, isn't that funny? Look at this. On every single tab, everything from here and above is common on every single tab. So here I've been hunting and fighting to find it, and it's been there every single time. When I did the parenting before, in the first video there, I did the parenting without, with everything sort of reset. Sometimes if you parent something to something, it'll jump. And the way to avoid that, and I'll get in, when I go deeper into parenting, I'll get into what this is all doing and what happens if you don't have it on. So I'm going to take my lights, kick up my motion options, and I'm going to parent them all to the lighting null. So now with my 3-point rig, I can just grab my lighting null and I can move it, and hopefully if you've done this with me, you'll be able to see over here as well that as I move, actually if I grab it right there, I should be, let's see if I can see it up here. The lights actually are changing their rotation to stay pointing at the mammoth, because I've got that set so that the lights are targeting the mammoth. So another thing that I could do here is, having all the lights move with the null is cool, but once I sort of get into this position, let's look down here. This is my key light, and then my fill light isn't really doing its job anymore, and my rim light is suspect. Let's just kick this back so it's all sort of linked up, and then let's go with the object, M for motion properties, my lighting null. I will now parent that to the mammoth. So now if I grab the mammoth and move it, it is moving the mammoth is the parent to the lighting null, so it moves the lighting null with it, and by moving the lighting null with it, because all the lights are parented to the lighting null, all the lights move with it as well. So I could animate my guy coming through here and his entire lighting rig animates with him. So not exactly a real world type situation, but could be an interesting effect. So I've shifted that way off, and I'm going to do the undo so that he's back in the middle here, because now I actually want to go back open my camera properties and kick this back up. I'm going to go ahead and do it the 9 pass that I've got written up in the homework. And then come out, render, render frame. So let's watch this get done. Yeah, this is going to end up being a little bit like paint drying, I guess. So we're at 11%. It's giving us an estimated 1 minute and 13 seconds left. We've already gone through 2 minutes and 23 seconds. We're on our second pass for our anti-aliasing. And what LightWave is kind of doing is it's just trying to continually look closer and closer at all the edges and figure out, you know, what color that pixel should be as it goes through. It's kind of interesting if you really watch this little piece of it closely. You can kind of watch it reworking itself consistently. But I'm going to stop moving the mouse because even the mouse is taking away a few little processor things that could be used better at working on this image. We're at pass 4 of 9 now, so we're not even halfway through. Isn't that great to know? Oh, there we go, we're at 5 of 9. But I tell you, this is going to look sweet. This is going to look pretty cool. And we're working, waiting. And based on the shot, it looks like I didn't turn the rim light back on to light the floor. So we're going to have an older look. Not an older look, but a less realistic look, because we're going to have that rim lighting, but without actually other objects catching that light. So we're at past 7 now. I'm just going to move a little bit just to make sure that the computer's sort of stayed in focused in this area as we're watching. Past 7, we're down to an estimate of 21 seconds, 19, 18. I'll not make you suffer through it. The second by second countdown. But it's kind of interesting. This panel gives us quite a bit of information of what's going on. We can see that I'm doing a range of 0 to 0. The resolution, pixel aspect ratio, all, that's part of that standard DV codec. 9 pass, PLD, anti-aliasing, classic. We had 9,413 points and 4,746 polygons. And we are done. It took us 2 minutes and 51 seconds to render that frame. So remember, when we first started this lesson, we were rendering frames out at 0.4 seconds, or 0.2 or something. I can't remember specifically, but it was certainly a fraction of a second. And just by working with lights and turning on the ray trace shadows, we have kicked this thing up to a much longer render time. If we open this up, even zoomed up at 200%, let's see, what did this do? 300? Well, it's giving me a problem last time, but not so much now. So this is blown up to 300%. And just all that anti-aliasing on there really does the trick. I mean, we could even do more if we wanted, but I think that will do for our explanation. So, hope you enjoyed it. Hope it wasn't too boring. I know that the previous video was a little brutal, I'm sure. It's like 48, 49 minutes long. But there we go. There's our 3-point light rig. So, as is requested in the homework, setting up a 3-point light rig, you should be able to set up a key light, a fill light, and a rim light. and name them appropriately so we know what we're looking for. I grabbed a hold of that thinking I was going to have the light here. So name it key, fill, rim and or hair light. Have a good one, guys. Later.